Hello and welcome to another episode of the TF Cast.
Today with us, we have Dana Sikkila, artist, director of the 410 Gallery, friend and confidant. Dana?
She's pretty confident too.
Confident
Some days.
confidant.
Some days.
Some days.
Dana,
Yeah.
welcome to the podcast again.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, actually our first ever person to come on the podcast twice, but last time you were a duo with Kyle, and here to tell us all about the Project Bike. That was in the very early days of the TF Cast. I think first 10 episodes, maybe.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it was like even within first 5.
Yeah, it was either 5 or 6. It was one of those. It
Yeah.
was super early, but we're super glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit what's going on at the 410 and maybe some of that work you've been doing in public too. I've seen a couple murals go up here recently. Maybe one. I don't know.
One, well, I'll talk about the 410, right? So 410 Project is a volunteer-managed community art space in downtown Mankato, which is always really funny because we're located in this really central part of downtown, and we still have people coming in once a week being like, did you guys just open? I've lived here for 20 years, and I've never seen you before. And I'm like, what? So we're always having to constantly remind people, like, we are an entity of creativity in this community. That sounded pretty good, right?
It does.
It does, yeah.
Creative entity.
Creative entity. And right now for summer, with COVID, we got shut down for a couple months, and having to reopen was extremely stressful. And planning exhibitions and programming was also really stressful. So we're kind of coming to the end of that cap, or that kind of idea of framing the space around the pandemic, which is really exciting. And right now we have an exhibition up by James Mackey. And then for the month of July here to maybe a little bit into August, we're actually going to be closing the gallery space just for the month to give our volunteers a break to travel and enjoy the summer, and kind of give us a little opportunity to reset the space a little bit too. And we've always noticed throughout the years, because I was doing Project Bike, that a lot of our programming numbers were down in July, and everyone's out doing fun summer stuff. And I would also like to be out doing fun summer stuff. This is kind of like my first summer not attached to Project Bike.
Yeah, it's been, how many years was that going on for?
5 years. And then last summer was the airport exhibition, putting all that together. And so this is kind of like the first summer where I don't have that fully lingering over my head. It's still a project in motion with our final film coming out in the fall here. But so we're going to close for a little bit and kind of reschedule our exhibitions for the fall, and new programming, and just seeing what else we can do.
So
Fun stuff.
for someone who, and maybe you covered this right at the beginning too, but for someone who doesn't know the 410 at all, like, what do you usually tell people about the space? What all does the 410 do?
I think that the main thing that really sets our space apart from other organizations in the southern Minnesota area is that we are really working with artists that are working in more experimental forms of art. So we work with a lot of installation artists. We don't censor artists. We do film, performance. I don't know. So it's like we're allowing creatives to come in and alter the space, right? And it gives them a chance to really express themselves. And that's not always through visual. Sometimes it's through music. We have a lot of experimental sound artists come in that maybe wouldn't be welcomed by the bar down the street to play for a couple hours, but we open our doors to allow them to come in to perform to a bigger audience, as well as documentate their work in public form, which if you don't have the space to do that, you're kind of just stuck in your house or studio making your work and recording it. But also through literary and dance, we've done a lot of experimental stuff with that as well. And we're also a great tie with the university systems in the town here, as well as our community members. So we have that good collaboration between the two entities. And we just work a lot with arts and advocacy, which also I think is a thing that sets us apart. We're always looking to bring artists in to where their work speaks to a higher power than just something attractive on the wall. And we also focus that around our programming as well. It's not just, bring your kid in to paint the same picture as the child next to them. It's about using our programming for that youth to come in and use their creative expression to like expand their way of thinking, or for them to meet other young creatives, or just build their self-confidence. So it's always about how art is going beyond just the physical object or the sound it's making or the words it's saying. So that's the main focus I feel that sets us apart versus maybe some other spaces in the area.
And how long have you been doing the directing of the 410 project?
I have been involved with 410 since 2009, and I took over as director in 2012. And the space itself as a whole has been open since 2003. And this month, June, is actually the 18th birthday of the 410 project in our community, which is, I think, an amazing feat considering the space has been 100% volunteer managed and runs off of donations from the community. So we don't get, we're not affiliated with the city of Mankato or have larger funds coming in. It's a lot of individual community support that really pays the bills, and then our programming.
What's been the most significant change? It probably over those years from 2009 to now. Like what has been the most noticeable?
I guess there's a lot of things, because I think you could think of that question as in the city of Mankato.
Sure.
Because I've been hanging out downtown in the middle of that block, the 500 block, for years, and it's changed so much from what it was just music-wise and population-wise and walkability-wise. And just the art scene in Mankato here has really expanded. When I took over in 2012, public art was just starting to be developed, the sculpture walk and things like that, but we didn't have the mural base that we have now, or more like community efforts creating events. It was all like all these bigger organizations that had to plan everything. And I think through the years, individual people were learning, we can come together as like a small group and host something, or musicians could get together and they could book their own events. So I think that was something that really developed, that grew the progression of our creative communities. But even within the 410 space, when I took over, it was really more of just an exhibition space. There wasn't a whole lot of programming, but just through the years of my own self-growth, it was like, this building has the opportunity to be a lot more than it was at that time, just being used to basically house artwork. It was lacking that actual making and discussion of art. So that's when we kind of started bringing in the programming and really developed, I think, how the 410 actually can benefit the community versus just providing something that's already happening somewhere else. How do we specifically assist the people and the creatives that are right here, like our audience and our base, and catering what we do to support them.
'Cause I think a lot of people might, you walk by the gallery, you go in there, you browse it. It's a pretty small gallery space, and it changes a lot, but you might not actually know how much. Like I certainly didn't know how much educational stuff was going on there until I started getting like more involved.
Yeah.
Because I would just go to like, every fourth opening or something, or I'd look in the window or something like that. What kind of like educational stuff are you offering down there?
It's always fluctuating, because that depends on the time of year. But again, through the years, we've developed our youth mentorship program. So I think it was in about 2016, we were doing a lot of group-based classes or sessions, we call them, more versus classes. And we were, I don't know, but like through that, we were noticing a lot of youth that were more like middle school age or late elementary that were kind of growing out of like community ed and that kind of just like pasting stuff on the paper, and that's fun. Like they're kind of growing into their creative ideas and they're wanting to be pushed, and it wasn't happening at home or at school. And when that support system isn't there for those young creatives, they have a tendency of getting kind of frustrated when they're not supported. And so that was something we really noticed and that we saw wasn't happening really anywhere else in town here, that kind of one-on-one mentorship. So then I developed our mentorship program to where kids come in once a week and they focus on arts making or appreciation. We talk about art history. And they're there for a certain amount of time, depending on the age of the child and kind of the attention span, we'll call it. And they use that independent time for them. There's no parents there. There's no other siblings there. And it's for them to express themselves and talk about things that maybe they want to talk about with their parents or their teachers, and be around other creative individuals that they can see, because a lot of times we work with kids where it's like they tell one parent, oh, I want to be an artist when I grow up. And there's still that stigma of like, well, you can't, why would you want to be an artist? There's no money, and I heard that when I was younger. But then I really wasn't good at anything else, so this was kind of it or nothing. But that's people still tell their kids that, and it's really damaging, because I think you think, oh, one sentence really is going to affect someone, but it actually really does.
Yeah, you can carry that forward for a long time, especially if it comes from a place of authority.
I've talked to adults, that are my age. I'm 35. Because sometimes on social media, I'll kind of start the conversation of, can we please stop putting up barriers of young people wanting to work in the creative field? Because just them saying they're an artist doesn't mean that's just like painting. They could be architects, they could be filmmakers, they could be poets. It's so broad, but we're not teaching people what that means to grow up and be an artist. There's still a lot of work there to do. But I'll talk to people online, and they're like, oh, when I was young, I was told by my parents, no, you're not going to go to art school, you're not going to get a degree in art, and blah, blah, blah. And then these people, they're in their 30s or 40s, and they're like, well, I'm doing something I don't really want to do. And then there's a lot of like personal struggle and doubt. And so then it's with the 410, then we do a lot of that support system too. It's like, how do we get you back into school, or how do we get you back into the arts community? And you guys probably have, heard people talk about that too. It's like, well, how do I get back to what I wanted to do when I was younger, when I'm a little bit older now?
Yeah.
So we try and get people, I don't know.
I don't
give
hear
them
it
some
through
direction.
the lens of age so much, but I do hear like that exact kind of gripe kind of a lot, where people are, wishing that there was more infrastructure for the arts, or that there was more things going on. And a lot of times it's just like, well, there really are a lot of things going on, and you just really have to look into it, because there are many, many things going on, because there's nothing that art doesn't touch. Like,
correct.
And I feel like that's another one of the things when we kind of like stifle creative development in a younger age for children, and then they think, oh, this isn't nearly as important. And then they get to their job, and it's required from them at some point for them to be, creative. And develop ideas. And they're like, well, I guess I wish I would have paid more attention in art class.
Well, I think too, I think, again, everyone just thinks the idea of practicing art or having art in schools is, again, just like painting and drawing, and that's all it is. And it's like, well, art teaches all of us, creative thinking, problem solving. The act of being creative is the process of thinking of new ideas, right? Everyone thinks being creative is being artsy or being able to draw, and those two words are totally separate. And so people are like, well, I'm not creative. It's like, mathematicians are creative, scientists, cooks. It's this. So, it's like, that's what art, like, it's creating a hypothesis. That's the same as like, oh, I'm going to make this painting. This is my idea of it, and this is how I'm going to calculate it and get to the end process. And everyone just thinks it's so disconnected.
Well, that's how you sell it. The only way you can really sell art is by presenting it as such, and that's how everything in our society is. It's like, how could you sell it? Well, it's a painting. That's what an artist is. They paint things.
And that's definitely one sector of the art world, right? It's the interesting visual on the wall, and you walk past it, and that's it. But I don't know. With the 410, we're just really fortunate to have a platform that we can have conversations like this, especially with our young families, or just people in their 40s and 50s that want to, restart on their creative ideas and working. And it's like, whatever we can do to help, because I know if we give that support system, there's no way it's going to hinder them. It's only going to emphasize their ideas of themselves and their works, and that there is actual purpose to it. Even if you're just like painting or doing stuff or making music in your house, there's a reason why you want to do it. There's a reason why you're thinking about it or talking to me. And so whatever the 410 can do to assist or connect or be, a networking tool or middleman to like connect creatives in the community, that's a huge mission for us. So I think that's another component that we offer that's pretty specific too.
Having those skills is really good for your mental health too,
100%.
Being able to actually I feel like a lot of it gets stuck in the visionary concept when you feel like putting the rubber to the road is difficult. You know, you don't have the physical skills to do it. And a lot of time it is just doing the thing. But another thing that I've kind of noticed is you've had some ability to affect the landscape of the area, like physically. Like for just one example I can think of is the yarn bomb. Like, you know, that was kind of the 410 kind of exploding out into the area. What was the idea kind of behind that?
Behind the yarn bomb. Yeah, so that happened, I don't even know how many years ago that was, like 3 or 4 years ago. And again, it was kind of starting, I think that was right after, I forget, the timeline is all mushed for me, but like when they had extended the sidewalks and, you know, the city was like, oh, this is a more walkable area. And then they put all the trees downtown and all the Kasota stone. And I was like, okay. And I know that door of the 410 is a barrier for people. You know, they'll look through the window and you can like wave them in as much as you want, but they're not coming in. Because for a lot of people, that's a scary part. Like, oh, I've never been in there. I'm not an artist. How do, you know, like, is someone going to talk to me or ask me questions about art? That's the scariest thing in the world.
My mom told me I should stay away from that.
I know, right? There's just a bunch of
You should put a popcorn machine in there.
bad people in there. I think at one time, a long time ago, we did.
Did it work?
No, I think we used to have like coffee and I don't know. No.
I just feel like if there was just a big popcorn machine in the middle, you wouldn't be able to shoo people away.
Yeah?
I always
Maybe we'll
get the best refreshments at an opening. I don't think they have any
reception.
problem.
Now we're actually
showing
opening our
good
receptions
stuff.
to have beverages and
Yeah.
kind of normal things like that. But yeah, anywho.
But yeah, they should be there for the art anyways.
Well, you know, receptions and things like that, events are socializing is a part of it as well. I always think about like how many people I have met just directly in that building or people that I know or are now married to people that they met at the 410 or have dated. You know what I'm saying? It's just like this weird, I don't know. So I'm always just thinking, what if this place wasn't here? That'd be crazy how it would kind of shift things for myself, at least, I know.
Yeah.
But with the yarn bomb and the public art, there wasn't really a whole lot of public art or things that kind of guerrilla style downtown, of course. And I was like, okay, you know, that's when yarn bombing was becoming pretty popular in the Twin Cities and like really like bigger metro areas. And I knew that we had a big base of knitters and crocheters and those art forms here in town. But again, that's the whole idea of like, well, this is folk art or it's like hobby art. Like, is knitting like fine art? I don't know. And again, it's we're there to kind of break down those barriers. So we had hosted a couple like knit nights where people could come in and learn to crochet and things like that. Again, it was just kind of gathering. I think we collected over like 500 individual like little pieces that we then like sewed together and then wrapped all the trees downtown and the bicycle racks and then the patio Puff 500 and kind of just like put these like interesting visuals out there. And it was a whole process because at that time the city hadn't developed any kind of paperwork for someone to do that. So I was like, yeah, I probably shouldn't, you know, just like put this stuff out there because sometimes I'll do that and then I get yelled at. I should probably ask someone if I'm going to do this because I want it to be up for more than like a couple days. And they didn't. I was like, oh, what do I have to do? Do I have to fill out some paperwork? And they're like, well, we don't really know. Like maybe we should like figure that out. So put together some like document saying we'll take it down by a certain day, and which I don't think we did. I think we just left it up until someone yelled at me again. But yeah, that was a great thing because it got people talking about, you know, the artwork and individual pieces, and then people just like, I think, be more mindful of the new landscape and like, oh, you know, the yarn's killing the trees, or a lot of calls to the cops saying that we were vandalizing downtown, and it was just this huge thing. And, you know, art's going to create a conversation, negative or positive. So to me, anything I thought was amazing, you know? And again, what can be art is kind of what we're always trying to like ask that question. And so I think that was a big project that got us kind of pretty notice, just because it was so
I would say I was
market.
down there at the time working, and it was just like you said, extremely polarizing. It was either people being like, "Oh, this is really cool," or people just angry. They're like, "This
Isn't
is
that funny? It's like,
garbage
yeah.
in the street. Someone's just garbaging everywhere." And I'd be like, "Yeah, actually, I like it.
Yeah.
It's nice."
It was just so funny because we'd like sit on the patio Pub 500 and people wouldn't know that like we were the people that put it up, and people would just be sitting there like talking trash or smack or whatever you want to call it. And we just, again, it's like that was the whole point. And people are like, "Oh, it's hurting the trees," and I'm like, "Well, no, it's not." And nothing was actually attached to anything. It was like zip tied to itself. So nothing was like strapped to a tree or tied to a tree tightly, or stapled into a tree. So, but I don't know. I kind of liked it when it
I
aggravated some
did too.
people.
I hope they. I think it's always great when you get both sides of it. And that one was just it was either one or the other. I never heard a neutral opinion.
I think art as a conversation starter is great. So
Yeah.
you get you get some good with the bad too, probably. Yeah.
Oh, all the time. We have people that come in and they're like, even into the gallery where this is an obvious, this gallery and this is art because it's hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
Versus on the street, it's like trash. Mm-hmm. But if we would have taken all that yarn and just like hung it up in the gallery, there would have been no question on how we defined it, So I always think those conversations are easy. But yeah, we've definitely had people that have walked into the gallery and they're like, "This is an artwork," and blah, blah, blah. They get so angry so fast. And then we just like have a conversation and it's like, well, that's kind of why we're here. Mm-hmm. Not everything is just a frame on the wall.
You mentioned earlier that you were curious about the impact that the 410 might have had on the landscape, say. And one thing that made me think of that I was going to tell you, and I figure I'll just launch it on the podcast because why not? But it is that of all of my musical experiences in Mankato, probably with the exception of Red Rocks, like the 410 is my favorite venue, despite
cool.
not really being a venue or broadcasting as such. So I wanted to let you know that, and thank you for hosting cool music.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And I think it's, I don't know. And it's obviously the 410's a different vibe when it comes to like music and sound stuff versus a bar. But that's kind of, the way that we want to keep it, because not everyone wants to perform in a bar. Not everyone's 21. And sometimes people have, kids that they want to have them play, So, just try not to put up those restrictions as in, some other places might be. But
there are some really like big, I don't want to say like restrictions or limitations to like playing music in a bar too, where if you don't have X amount of music ready to go, like to play for hours on end, it's not really economical for the bar to hire you typically. They want 2 or 3 hours of entertainment. And if you're an aspiring artist or you've got 40 minutes of music that you just poured the last 6 months of your life into, it's like, well, go learn 50 more covers and come back when you have something that I can pay you for.
That's 100% true, because we've definitely had a lot of bands that have played there that have just newly gotten together and they only maybe have like 6 or some songs, but they wanted the practice of like playing to a live audience and them together as a group with an audience. And so we definitely have done that, because again, we're not really conducive for like, we're going to play for 3 hours, so having shorter sets and things that are more experimental and
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like I've seen a lot of music in there that's like funded by grants or and I mean we had Synth Meet there too, which we need to get back on like sooner than later.
Like I said,
plug, stay tuned.
Yeah, hopefully, like I said, with the fall, and we've had a couple musicians approach us about shows and things like that, and I said, well, we're gonna kind of hold off till August to start scheduling things like that, but pretty soon we'll kind of go back to our normal, because we used to have a lot of events like that, but then this last year we just couldn't house that stuff. It really wasn't the risk that we were wanting to take. So
well, a lot of that got shut down. I don't think anyone was doing live music like they wanted, really.
Yeah.
I mean, we certainly weren't. So it's just kind of par for the course on that one, I think.
Yeah, but y'all came out pretty strong, right? I mean, like the 410 is now, I mean, I remember that there was like some anxiety during COVID times, but it's a sunny outlook these days, isn't it?
Yeah, we're pretty fortunate. Throughout the state of Minnesota, because I work a lot with like bigger organizations throughout the state. And a lot of, those major organizations, when it comes to like, well, especially our theater companies, just really struggling and places closing. And that's always a reality for the 410. It's like we could one day people like, oh, we don't want to donate anymore. So, okay, bye. So there's always that risk. And so I was a little concerned with, the idea of sustainability and, are we going to reopen and we're still needed by the community was always a question in my own mind too. But I got to the point last fall where things were just starting to kind of open up a little bit. And I was like, well, we have to make the decision. Either we open up or we're just sitting here. And if we're just idling, we're not going to sustain. So we might as well at least open our doors to exhibitions. So we kind of made that call and to some smaller programming.
Well, it's not helping anyone to be closed anyways. Like if it's its job to, to be out in the community and doing things. Yeah.
It's cool. Well, what does the 410 look for when they're considering the artist that they're either inviting or fielding as a request to install? What kind of criteria?
Yeah, for our exhibiting artists, a lot of times we scout out artists that we feel maybe their work could be like an educational aspect to our creative community here, or we have a lot of people that apply to exhibit their work. And for me, when I'm curating and scheduling shows, it's really about providing a wide range of mediums as well as backgrounds of artists. And in the past, we've been really focused on the idea of showing just like local, regional artists. But I don't know. I feel like we need to start broadening throughout the state. So we had a lot of metro and larger city artists showing here this last, basically winter to summer. Artists from the Twin Cities and from northern Minnesota exhibiting, which is great because I think when the community of Mankato, a lot of us are really strong together, and there's a lot of events and a lot of crossovers. So we might be familiar with someone's work, right? We saw it in a different show. We saw it in an arts fair, and we need to start expanding our horizons of what we're looking at here in this community. So then it's just like we need to bring more people in. And that's good because that connects, again, the metro artists with our more rural community here in Mankato.
I would tend to agree 100% on that. Just on account of the fact that a lot of times you hear people talk about the cities and they talk about like it's very far away and it's this completely separate insular community that's like just not. It's nothing to do with us, and it's really just right up the road.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason that we can't be a destination for those as much as we are as much as they are a destination for us, because there's people down here who love art and music and
Huge.
Yeah, it's what we're here for. We're technically a metro too. Technically a metro.
Yes. But I think too, and this is kind of this, the heavy thing I think on like my shoulders, and I think like people that plan music events. It's kind of up to us to bridge, because let's be honest, who else is going to do that in this town?
I think we should have better connected cultures, and then it's like, oh wait, that's me. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's like that goes back to the idea of just within the past couple of years is independent individuals not associated with restaurants or bars, events like venues, universities. It's like, oh, I can plan that stuff. I can contact that musician to come here and play at the 410 or play at a bar that, I believe in the business owner and all of that stuff. But so I think a lot of that has been like more like entrepreneurial. I don't even know how you would define that.
Just people taking initiative to do the things.
Yeah.
In general, because I don't know, it does work. Most people aren't gonna like shoot you down if it's gonna bring people in the door. I found most places are receptive until it starts costing them a ton of money.
Yeah. But I remember like when I first took over, and again, that was in like 2012, 13, 14, I remember asking, and I was at a different caliber, obviously, back then than I am now. And that sounded kind of whatever.
It's been
I was a
long
different
couple
person. I did
years.
different things. I remember asking artists, visual artists from the Twin Cities, like, hey, would you be interested in showing in Mankato, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no. What's going on in Mankato? Nah. And now it's like, we reach out to artists that I know our communities would really appreciate their work. And they're instantly like, oh, we've heard about what's going on in Mankato. We've heard about what's going on in the 410. And just that crossover between, I don't know, like, it's the gap has definitely gotten more narrow with that kind of partnership between the Metro and Mankato when it comes to creatives, music and visual and literary.
Yeah, it's everything.
Yeah.
It's all the arts. I mean, I remember just not the other day, it was a while ago now. I always find out about new things that are going on there. We had the, oh my gosh, I'm a jerk.
Where were you?
I was here
Recent
doing here, okay.
doing a podcast with a poet who wrote a book, who's your neighbor, and his
Michael
name
Torres.
is Michael Torres.
Yes.
And
It's literally my neighbor.
yeah, and he's like, oh yeah, we do poetry readings at the 410 Project. And I was like, I'd never heard about that. Like, and
Yeah.
it's just my fault.
That's how I met him.
Yeah, not paying attention. Mm-hmm. But
it's kind of hard when you're not in that specific, medium, per se. It's like we were doing writer's block down at the 410 once a month, I think for like 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. During, oh my God.
Yeah, that's the
Giant
big
bug. So that was, we teamed with the English department, and once a month their faculty and graduate students or undergrads would come down and host open mics, and it was the funnest thing. And yeah, that's how I met Michael, and then he graduated, and now he teaches at MSU. And I don't know. So again, it's like without the 410, that's someone I probably wouldn't have met or hosted those events to, I think, really kind of strengthen some writing community. Because then a lot of those graduate students and undergrad, when they left, they stayed here, and some of them put together like small, more specific writing groups. Like maybe it was like fiction or nonfiction or sci-fi, fantasy. And they were meeting at the 410 as kind of like a workshop group, like a space that they could come together that wasn't like a coffee shop or something like that. So
just a space where they didn't need to buy anything.
Yeah, and get bugged.
Yeah, totally. So I also wanted to ask, because I hear this all the time. People talk about like they have projects that they want to start or other things to do. And they're talking about whether or not they want to run it as a business or a nonprofit or like what they're going to do, in their
That's fair, yeah.
in their planning. And I kind of just wanted to like get some of your perspective or experience on like what it's been like, running such like a public nonprofit in the area for so long. Like you took it over. It wasn't yours to begin with, right? And I'm assuming it changed and some other things happened. But yeah, just like kind of some of the back end stuff on there and like what it's like to deal with both ends of the front of house and back of house.
Well, with the 410, we are not an official 501c3, so we are not a nonprofit.
Oh, never mind.
But we run in very, very, very similar ways, but we don't have to follow as many guidelines.
Wait, so what is the thing that you are technically?
We call it more of like a collective. So when it comes, so we can still apply for grants because we have a fiscal sponsor. So Region 9 Development Commission or the Mankato Area Foundation has been our fiscal sponsor for different things. So that's if someone wants to make a larger donation, it goes through those entities that then basically that money is written to them, and then our fiscal sponsor can then write that check to us to where then we can pay our bills and things like that. Or our grants, we can apply for grants, and that goes towards our programming. Or it's just, it's a small account. So it's just a business account that we work out of, and we don't have a board officially or things like that. But yeah, because it was one of those things when I took over, it was it's this weird balance between the idea of a business and then a nonprofit. We're kind of like this weird in between. And that's kind of how it was, because the students that originally started the 410, that's what they were. That bug is creeping me out. That's kind of how they had it. It was just like, pull pull your money together, pay the rent, all that jazz. The bugs have gotten inside now.
Yeah, they were out there handling it on the outside.
So moments before the podcast, an exterminator arrived, and I think that he's scared.
Outside.
Yeah, I think he scared them inside.
Yes.
Well, I only see one, but has
Just
there
you
been
wait.
more?
Just you
He's
wait.
on the window over there. Ooh, yeah, that guy looks angry.
He's probably doesn't like the yarn bomb.
Yeah, he's probably one of those anti-yarn bomb peeps.
Hater over there.
But yeah, so it's just been, and so when I took over, it was kind of like, well, when I took over, the 410 didn't even have a bank account. And I was like, okay, obviously I can't work like that. I'm not putting my own money, like just basically putting it all in one cluster. So then we start these business accounts that are just for the 410 or for Project Bike and things like that. We pay our bills out of that, but any bigger money has to go through the our fiscal sponsors.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't understand that at all. That's crazy. So there's a million options if you don't want to do either of the things, because I hear a lot of people who are just they're kind of like torn between the idea of
Well, it just depends
doing a
on
business.
the amount of money you have coming in. You know, obviously, if we were an entity that was getting huge, giant donations all the time, obviously we'd have to rethink some things. Or if we were selling things, like we don't sell any of the artwork in there; the artist does. So we don't take any commission from work sold when artists display in the space, and that's been true since the very beginning. So we're not taking that money, you know, so we just call everything a donation, and you donate, it just goes right into basically paying the rent and paying the bills.
Cool.
Nice. And that kind of gets into, but what are the best ways the community can support the 410 and make sure that it continues to be an asset that they have?
Yes, so again, there's really the two ways that, well, I guess there's three ways that we really ask people to support. So again, we are a volunteer managed space, so we're always looking for new volunteers. Is the bug behind me?
No. It came back this way.
It's like, I can see your eyes over my head. We're always looking for volunteers, especially, like I said, we're going to close here in July, reopen a little bit into August. And so we're going to be kind of, again, resetting, opening the call for volunteers. So this could be for gallery hours, assisting with programming, graphic design. So we work a lot with university students. So it's great for your resume and outreach and just kind of know what else is going on in the area. Obviously funds, donating, like I said, literally donating. Like sometimes people will give us cash and we walk straight to the store and buy toiletries with it. And that's like the money for the month, or, you know, writing the check for the electricity. So I think a lot of times people are like, oh, well, I donated $10 in the donation jar. And what does that really go to? And it's like, no, every tiny little cent goes in directly into that building. And again, then if we do have programming or special projects, that's funded by the grants that we write. So just supporting us financially, and that can be done through Venmo or PayPal, or again, directly just throwing a couple bucks in the donation jar, which would mean you should come into the gallery. Or again, following us on social media, on Facebook, sharing what we're doing and what we're trying to get out of there. We don't have an Instagram exactly, but we do have a hashtag 410 project. You can go on there and look at things that other people have linked to us. Or if you have questions like about exhibiting or in general, a lot of times when we have programming or people have ideas for creative projects and they need a place to support them or help them or host it, we are a really great entity for that as well. And if we're not the exact group that you're meant to work with, we can at least help get you to another set of people that can help you achieve your goals. So especially when it comes to more administration stuff too, I think, you know, like writing grants or resumes and marketing and
a resource for a lot of that.
Yeah.
Some of the questions that an aspiring artist or a new artist in the area might have. The 410 is probably a pretty good option to go check out and see what they got to say.
Consulting services.
Tip jars right over there.
I know I've been scalping ideas since day one, so like
Stealing
stealing ideas. That's the thing.
from the 410?
Uh-huh.
Oh, you're like every other person.
Yeah. Well, hey,
Just kidding.
At least I let people know.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, we're just trying. I tried to set up the space to where I know as myself as a leader, I don't want to get burned out. And I know I have a lot of other creative projects and goals that I have set that I've been able to achieve because I haven't overexceeded myself with the 410. So.
Well, we've talked about the 410 a lot today. Do you want to talk about any of those other creative goals or projects? Like, what are some of the things that you've come up with personally that you've been working on?
Me as an individual?
An individual artist.
Well, I think when it comes, looking back to Project Bike, our final film got crazy delayed because of COVID, and that should be coming out here in the fall with the timeline that we have set. So that's really exciting, but we still need to define some timelines for that before we make any official announcements. And I think just with myself too, within the 410, when I took over that space, I really had no idea about running a gallery at all. I didn't have any experience on paying of bills for a building or writing grants or developing programming. And working within a smaller community too, where it's there's an artist at that time just lining up on the streets. So I think just with my development of how I grew as a creative leader in more hands-on leadership and more grassroots and advocacy, I've really grew my appreciation for helping other artists develop their ideas and sustaining off their practices and creative ideas. We can get paid for our ideas. Did you know that?
Yeah,
You're learning?
I'm getting there.
And I think it was always, as an idea person, as I like to call myself, but not always successful in following through with those ideas, I really wanted to push forward again, helping other artists and consulting. And so now I'm working for Springboard for the Arts, which if you're not familiar with, you should. They're an organization based out of St. Paul that supports creatives in our states, but helping them with more sustaining when it comes to insurance, legal things, writing grants, marketings, productions, portfolio building, all that crazy stuff. So they brought me on as an artist consultant. So I do one-on-one consults, as well as I facilitate their workshops, and I'm facilitating some panels throughout the state, creative panels, which is just really exciting. And that was a really big goal of mine. And I know the 410 assisted with me getting there, because I would have never gone into arts administration if that wasn't plopped in my lap. And now it's something that I obviously care a lot about, because if I wouldn't have had that support, I would not be where I am. So then it's okay, I can kind of pay my bills. So how can we help other people pay their bills with what they actually want to do versus what they're forced to do sometimes? And I think just too, I've just been really fortunate to work really hard for a lot of years, and now I can sustain off my creative practices and, like I said, administration. But then it's like you said, doing murals in larger scale, public art, which I just got done doing a mural at the Spring Lake Park pool facility, kind of in their inside area, which was great. And I don't know, there's all these people that how do I get there? Or how do I get to that point? And I think a lot of people sometimes look at things I've done or other artists, and they're like, well, I'm never going to get to that, or they're just lucky, and is there a little bit of luck? Yeah, I'm not going to lie. But it's a lot of hard work, and we are, what's the word?
Oh, probably.
Working for ourselves. What the heck?
Self-motivated?
Self-employed.
Self-employed.
Wow, we are all really smart, aren't we?
The words employed.
Bunch of artists in this room.
Yeah. And I teach college. Crazy, huh?
Well, no, I think a lot of times the thing you might be kind of searching for there is that the path isn't entirely clear.
Never.
So it is kind of wandering or trying different things to move more in the direction of your goal, as opposed to, you want to be an accountant. It's well, you go to college and then you go work at the accounting firm or whatever, and whatever.
Yeah.
It's just not quite like that.
Yeah, I always tell people what has set me apart, and even the 410, is it on me?
Oh, no, it
No.
was. All right, are we going to have to get this thing?
I think it doesn't look
Do we have
harmless. Or it
Yeah,
doesn't
no.
look, it doesn't look harmful.
It does not look harmless. I would say
It
that's
doesn't look
true.
harmful.
I don't know.
I think it's okay though.
Give it a microphone.
I don't remember because I was distracted by the bug.
Yeah, we got really caught up in it.
We were talking about like your personal work and.
Oh yeah, I think. I think just when it comes to like when I'm leading workshops or talking with artists, I'm out. Like I don't know. I've been fortunate to where I've been able to put myself out there to basically take opportunities, which sounds really cheesy. But I think it's, the idea of like self-doubt or like, oh, I can't do that because I have this other job or this or that. And I don't know, you have to take risk. And again, that sounds really cheesy, but I go back to, taking over the 410 when I had no idea what I was doing and starting Project Bike. Again, just didn't know what I was doing and developing a lot of this stuff. And it's just like, well, let's just figure this out and just see what happens. And again, if you just put in a good enough effort and bug enough people and just do something different than what other people are doing, it's going to take off.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you just like listen to your ideas, I think, because consistent with like all that we've been talking about, whether it's turning your art into more of a business or just being an employee who uses creativity to be better or something, it's like, it's all about ideas and then ideas over time. And like your example there with the Project Bike, like that's a great example of something that was at its core just an idea. You're like, I think I want to mash these things together. And you didn't know that when 5 years later it was going to be this awesome thing you could look back on and be like, wow, glad I like decided to do the challenging thing and like try the idea. Yeah, that is for sure. So it's just, it's then just figuring out what you want to put your energy towards. I don't know. It's hard though too.
It is really hard. It's always going to be changing.
You need, as an artist or someone who aspires to be an artist, you need a system that can give you a little bit of like freedom with your time and energy so that you can kind of pursue those things.
Yep.
Like it'd be tough to be an artist if you like were not paying the bills and, like you kind of, I don't know if it's a Maslow's hierarchy thing, but you got to get a little into the actualization or you got to have a full belly.
Yeah, it totally depends on, like I said, what your goals are. It's like people draw in a notebook in their living room, and that's what art is to them, and that's how they are as artists, And then some people, it's like, well, this could be my sustaining living, so what do I have to do? So again, it's a sliding scale. So I think it's just figuring out for yourself what your creative energy actually does for you and what you want it to do for others as well. Does that make sense?
For me, I feel like what happened was that I kept seeing art in my life in different ways. And I don't know exactly what ways they were, but like I was taught painting, and I was like, I don't really like painting. I'm not very good at it. And I was taught something else, drawing. I don't know. And then I was like, I don't know. That's not for me. And then I got out of the place where people were pushing art at me.
Yep.
And then it was like, oh wait, but I'm still seeing art. Like the architecture's art. There's even art in nature. And so like really reconnecting with the more abstract nature of art and the less, I don't know, prestigious or like traditional. It was like, oh, I can be an artist too. And it does look like this combination of engineering and creativity and ideas and whatever that is unique to me. And I think that that's a path that everyone takes in a little bit of a different way, maybe.
Yeah, I think so too. Because again, it's that, whenever I tell people I'm a visual artist, they're like, oh, so you're a painter. It's like, well, I do paint, but is that like my main medium or method? No, not at all. So I think there's still that idea of getting beyond, like, oh, you're a musician. You play the guitar?
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, there's a lot of other things, what that word can hold. So again, I think, as years go on and the idea, especially in our community, of just the arts growing, I think people's understanding, of what, these creative jobs and ideas really can be, one day at a time.
Certainly. I feel like we're just like 100% involved in the arts when we're making videos, you know? I mean, and I feel like a lot of people don't see like video production as that, but it feels like it when you're planning it, you know?
Well, 100%, because you guys are like curating something together, right? So it's the same as someone is making something visual or writing something. It's like these individual components to come together to make something interesting for some reason,
Well,
you know?
and even as the person doing it, like to not consider, and I think most work or projects could be considered art. So to not consider it art is really kind of doing yourself an injustice because you won't see it from the lens of this thing that can be explored and pushed and like experimented with because there are concepts inherent with like art. I don't know if I would leave the education part to you, but it's like there are design elements and there are thoughts about symmetry and color that like are really important even if this project isn't necessarily artistic or like defined as artistic, but they're like pretty critical for things to just go smoothly or be for you to get a good result.
Yeah.
Well, and especially with video, like, you know, a lot of the times if someone's giving you something and telling you, they want a specific result. So you need to like think about who the person is digesting it and then like produce that result in them. And, you know, you can do that with, you know, varying levels of, you know, dishonesty or like, cause it's that feeling that they want. I mean, like you look at the McDonald's commercial and like, that's a bunch of styrofoam and stuff like that. Like, but it makes you want a cheeseburger. So it's good, I guess. I don't know, maybe.
Well, I think it's just different with like film and you guys because everything is visual. Not like people that put together news segments. Like, is that considered art?
I think so. I mean, I
It
think
is,
it might
you know,
be
it's
kind
the
of like
same-
lowbrow, but
Well, so it's like the person drawing in their sketchbook, and then you guys
Yeah.
are the person drawing on the canvas.
Well, I think
Is that how you're?
no.
it probably has more to do with the amount of impact one person has. Because I think, like, in the example of, like, a news thing, you've got a lot of people playing some small to large roles, and none of them are, like, particularly creative, but there's certainly an artistic element to most of the roles, and it's not important that it gets showcased so much. So, but, like, when we're doing projects, it is like just two of us working on it, and we have to do a lot of design and thinking about what it will look like. And I think that there's a lot of creativity in that.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that, and I just think but again, like from the outsider standpoint, they're like, well, you guys just put together videos,
Yeah.
and that's the same as a commercial, or that's the same as the news, or same, you know. So it's like versus like someone in the visual arts. But again, someone might be like, oh, it's all the same to me too. So I don't know.
News is like a particularly weird one to compare it to in my, because like most of the news that you see is infotainment, you know, like if you like, especially network television, you know, it's really meant to make you feel a certain way, and I think that way is like you want to keep watching through the commercial break. And then, you know, as you go down, I don't want to say like smaller news organizations are more credible. Like I don't necessarily believe that all the time, but like, you know, like journalism exists with those people, and then it gets kind of like clipped out and clipped out and clipped out, and then you get the really sensational network television. And that's what I think of when I think of the news. And I really do think of that as like performance art almost. Like those people, you have to get ready to say those things. Like the real like big TV pundits, like their life must be crazy, you know. Like on all sides of the spectrum, like you have to be like consistent, and people are like their emotions like weigh on your every word, or the people who watch network television all day at least.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think that's like, you know, you're going to hear that. I don't know if it would be criticism or questioning, you know, when you make these decisions as an adult, and even a young adult, you know, like going to art school, or I just had an artist consult with a 17-year-old here at Mankato West who was debating going to arts college or going to like MSU art department, and the choices and what to think about. And so I think there's always that criticism, you know, a little bit. It's like, oh, well, what's the difference between what you're doing or what's the other stuff? You know, this is way more hard work than getting a job somewhere else. So I think it's just really being ready for that as well, those constant conversations being an adult and kind of working in the creative field and why you're doing this or why are you still doing this. You know, because people ask me that all the time. Why are you still doing this?
Is that why you use that like adult
Art job.
the art job and
Yeah.
the adult thing so much because
Yeah.
of that like criticism?
Yeah. And I don't know if I would really say it's criticism because I don't think people are like, oh, you've made bad choices by any means. But I think it's maybe a different way of living or sustaining than other 35-year-olds living
Yeah.
in more of a small metro area.
I don't think
I don't
people
know.
realize that there's like a little bit of criticism dug into some of those questions. Like, how does that work? You know what I mean?
True, but then you have to think, does that person even know what they're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Well-
And so, yeah, that's...
And that's where, even from an outsider, like, it's difficult to understand how someone who they might be like, oh, that person doesn't seem very different from me, but like, they get to spend their time painting murals.
They get
What?
paid to paint?
Yeah, or like,
Yes.
and maybe it's like, that's weird, or maybe it's like, I want to do that. But either way, like, kind of what we were getting at before, it's just this very, like, you didn't set out to paint murals probably, so it's just like a stop on the journey, you know?
Yeah, everything. One opportunity. That's how I feel the art world works. It's one opportunity leads to another through networking and connectiveness, and yeah, that's how. Yeah, I don't know. That's why I'm like, when artists are like, oh, how do I get into the art scene or whatever? I cannot emphasize it enough. It's being present. It's being present online, being present publicly, supportively to other creatives and organizations, because that's where your support system's going to come from.
I've heard that people talk about that from music school and art school, where it's like, well, you certainly could develop all those skills outside of the school. You could probably learn most of those things on YouTube, but the biggest thing that you gain is relationships with your peers. Yep. And like that networking is forever going to be the thing that is going to take you forward, because you just like that's how it works, you know? Like I've never seen like a billboard like, I'll paint your mural.
I've done stuff like that on social media. I was like, oh, I want to do this.
Yeah.
Who will let me do it?
Well, and maybe that's part of it too. Like, I think what's important is taking action. If you have a pencil and a piece of paper, you're ready to start taking action. If you've got your phone, which has a video camera, and you want to be a videographer, you're ready. Like, it's the results you get from doing experiments like that will put you in a position where you could post on social media like, hey, I want to do a music video, and then somebody's seen your like vlog and knows that you're capable of assembling a video, and it's like, yeah, you can do my music video.
Yeah.
So it really is just about, I think, like getting a little bit of momentum or trying some stuff, and then like seeing whether you actually enjoy it and whether it fits well.
Yeah,
Pushing forward.
and I work a lot. I don't really have a separation too much. I'm starting to get better at of like my personal life and my work life. It's all one big cluster, which again has, like I said, negatives and cons to it. But
You just said negatives and cons.
negatives and cons, positives and cons. I'm thinking of a conversation I just had with my mother about this.
But that might be like a, what do they call that? A Freudian slip.
Yeah.
It's the universe telling me something. Dana. But I don't know, because it's like, why do you work so much? It's like, well, again, when you're self-employed, like if I'm not developing programs and projects for me to do or putting it out there like, hey, I can do this, I'm not going to make any money. Like, I will definitely cold call or cold email organizations and be like, hey, this is what I offer. This is what I can do. And like, even with the Springboard, getting like the artist consulting, I took every training that they offered just so they would know who I am, what I do, what my skill sets are, connecting through social media. And then they're like, oh, we want to bring you on as an artist consultant. It's like, okay, now I want to do workshop facilitator. I got to show them I can do workshop facilitating. So it was just constantly, you have to tell people what you're good at.
Especially with art, because the alternative is like, I guess the alternative is the experience of your regular job experience, where you like you go to school or maybe you don't, and then you have to write a resume and submit that with like your work history and hope that the hiring person read it and that you had the right skills. Like,
Yeah.
art just kind of flips it a little bit, and it's like you got to tell people what you're capable of a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Or it's like I'm a seasonal worker. It's like I teach at MSU, and then I'm off in the summer, so I have to find a job to do in the summer. So if it's developing a program or project at the 410 and writing a grant or finding some money to then some of that goes towards me as a facilitator, you know, and it's if not, I'm going to have to work somewhere else, and I don't want to do that. But I got a lot of ideas, and so we'll see.
Cool. Well, hey, should we do plugs and wrap it up there? We got anything else we for sure want to get out into the world, or do you got any upcoming projects that are? I know you mentioned 410 is going to be down for a bit, but
We're down for the bit. But again, just people following us on Facebook, because we're going to give a lot of our updates. We got some calls for artists coming out here that are beyond just exhibiting regular shows, so some different opportunities, and so we just ask for people to follow along, and yeah.
Go check out the James Mackey installation right now. It's going to be there for how minutes longer?
Week and a half.
A week and a half, yeah. So if you're watching this now, just go to the 410 project.
Come down.
Yeah.
Or like I said, yeah, if you have an idea, or again, you want to exhibit or perform or do anything literary or dance, or even like we've done like small performances, like one-man shows in our back studio, definitely reach out and get conversations going, you know, because, you know, we can't communicate with everyone, us going to them. You know, we want people to come to us and support them.
and don't be afraid to submit for a juried art show if you're at all artistic, because it's a scary word, but like, I mean, I thought it was a scary word, and now I don't.
Well, yeah, we have our group exhibition, so we'll have a Halloween show in the fall. So it's all Halloween themed artwork anyone can enter work in. We've had that show since we opened in 2003. It's super fun. And then we have our juried show. So we have a couple exhibitions where anyone can submit their own individual work with just a small entry fee. And again, so if you don't have the work to participate in one large show to apply, maybe get your friends together, apply for a show, put some work in the juried or the Halloween show, just get the ball rolling, get showing your visual work.
Heck yeah. Well, Dana, thank you for all that you do for the arts community of Mankato. Actually, did we get your plug? I forgot. Do you want a personal plug? Or do you want 410 plug? Just whatever you want. Just right here. Oh, you mentioned the 410 Venmo too. Like if we want to get some cash donations flowing from
cash donations. So you can go on there. So our Venmo is Dana Sikkila /410 project, because we had to connect it. Or our PayPal. You can go on our website, the410project.com, and donate through PayPal. Or like I said, we love it when people come into the space. I feel once we've broken that barrier of coming in for one or two times, I think people realize that it's
normal.
Art's not intimidating, and it's okay to have a conversation about something you're not familiar with, visual or not, or maybe it's just about the downtown area or the music scene of Mankato. We'll have conversations, really about anything. Well, almost anything.
It depends on who's there.
It depends on. We've definitely had some one-of-a-kind conversations in that building, which should never leave. Deep, dark secrets.
Thank you
Just
for
kidding.
facilitating all of that.
Yes. And thanks for coming on the cast.
Anytime. Thank you.